What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have something a little bit different for you guys. I wanted to bridge into some other stuff regarding Forza and eventually different games maybe, but today I wanted to show you guys how to make a drift build. And what we're going to start out with is rear wheel drive, because for whatever reason I used to always do all wheel drive for these things, but I've recently, not recently, but like a month or two ago, as I've gotten into drifting, transitioned more into rear wheel drive. Obviously I drifted the wheel, but my tunes and stuff like that, a lot of times people say work amazing for controllers and stuff like that. Also, obviously, if you have a wheel, I do make these for myself and for a wheel, so they do work really well on the wheel. So if you have a wheel, these are great tunes to download. Just search my name. It's Pikckyy TTV on Xbox, and you guys can search that up. So I kind of wanted to get started with the upgrades and stuff that I like to do, and go through all the upgrades, and then go through like the actual tuning section and kind of just explain everything across the board on how I build my rear wheel drive drift tunes for the wheel and for controller. So I wanted to start out with something that was like my first successful rear wheel drive drift build that I did myself. It was completely by myself. The first like one that actually ended up working, and one that I actually still to this day recommend to all of my viewers who are learning how to drift and learning how to make builds, just because it's a really great car. When I start out making these cars, I go to the upgrades and I start out with the engine, because who doesn't love, you know, a good engine swap. For this one specifically, I put the V8. There's no really specific reason. It's got like the most power, and I really like the sound of it. V8s sound really good. V12s sound awful. I'll probably never do a V12. The four rotor inline four, I mean, these are decent options, but I really just prefer the V8 sound, and I love the fact that I can supercharge it. Turbos and superchargers are different in the fact that I think it actually even holds true in the game. Superchargers are instantaneous power, where turbos are kind of like a charged power type of deal. So as you're going, you'll get more power with a turbo, not more than a supercharger, but you'll get more power in your car as you're drifting and stuff like that. And I don't really want alternating power. I kind of want instant power, and power that's going to be consistent. So that's why I really usually go with superchargers, and I usually go with positive displacement because they're a little bit better than centrifugal in my opinion. Rear wheel drive, like I talked about, and then who doesn't love a good Rocket Bunny kit? You know, that's just aesthetics. It doesn't really matter. Engines, they're gonna be personal preference. Just play with stuff. You'll find stuff that you like the sound of and the power to. And sometimes it depends what you're doing. If you're doing tandem drifting, you're gonna want to go for a lot lower horsepower. If you're just doing normal drifting or drift competitions, which I host a lot on my stream, which are very specific to my own niche of drifting, I made my drift competitions from scratch, and the rules and everything to make it completely unbiased. And there's some huge prizes for that. So if you're ever interested in good at drifting and you want to win those prizes and stuff like that, come by the stream. We give away hundreds of millions of credits. After I do the swap, I usually just head to the start and go down the line. I start out with the swap, and then I go to the beginning, and I go through and I just max out pretty much everything across the board. Depends on the car. You can mess with stuff. If you're trying to do drift adventure, obviously do the best things that fit what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah, you go through, like I said, just upgrade everything. I pretty much maxed out everything across the board in this section. So you can actually see like certain things certain things unlock different types of tuning, which you really do need. So you almost need to max out a lot of this. Like this unlocks brake tuning. This wouldn't allow me to tune my brakes. And then if you look at this one, unlocks spring, damper, and alignment tuning. So you need to max out a lot of these. I like to go with minimum weight as possible, so I usually don't put a chassis on or anything like that, like a roll cage. It doesn't unlock anything, and it's kind of useless. Maximum weight reduction, I go for like max speed, minimum weight. Sounds like a race build, but it's just the way I like to build my drift cars. These are pretty important. This allows you to unlock some more like gear tuning and stuff like that. I max all that out. Tires, same thing. I go for minimum level of grip because my handbrake's actually broken. I have a Fanatic handbrake, and I bought Fanatic specifically because I didn't want a cheap eBay one that broke, and I broke my Fanatic one somehow. So I mainly make drift builds that I can drift on the wheel without a handbrake, so kind of like a Formula Drift car where you're kind of always at a loss of traction, which I find is really fun when you completely have no traction the whole time and a ton of power. It's actually really controllable. and really fun to drift with. So I would never go past the second option for tires, like sport tires or anything like that. I really wouldn't get into the race, or some people say drag. I hate drag tires on drift cars. Doesn't feel good. Um, I wouldn't go more than one or two sizes up on the tires. You don't really want these honking tires for drifting. Um, Rims, kind of personal preference. They're very minuscule weight changes, almost unnoticeable. Just go with whatever you aesthetically like, and don't increase the size of the wheel or the rim. Like just leave it how it is. Stock, and then this stuff. I mean, they don't change too much. It changes the statistics and the aesthetic a little bit, but I don't really think it's worth messing with or tweaking too much. Um, that being said, that's about it for the upgrades. Every car is different, got different engines, different, wheels, all this stuff. You're gonna have to just practice and fiddle with it because I can't show you all of that in one go. Um, as far as tuning going, this is one of my most downloaded tunes ever. You can see it has 1,000 horsepower, 841 foot-pounds of torque, weighs about 2,500 pounds, and yeah, it's a really great car. A lot of power, like I said. It's pretty much always sliding, and I'm obviously going to do a run for you. How I start out all my rear-wheel drift cars is pretty much the same, and then I tweak it as I go. You can't really just there's not like a dedicated template to say, hey, this car is going to drift now. There's things you can do to get it towards that, but you kind of just got to start out with like a basic thing to get that loss of traction and stuff, and then you're good. If you take a look at the left, it actually says top speed failed, 0 to 60 failed, 0 to 100 failed. What I've assumed from this is when people ask me, this is what I tell them, is that I can't get a top speed because my tires actually don't have any traction at all. So once you set the tune to where you exceed that traction limit pretty much all the time, you're gonna fail all the top speed limits. It's not a problem because it's a drift car. You're not trying to get top speeds or 0 to 60s or anything like that. If you make a car that's not a handbrake drift car, which means you don't use your handbrake to lose traction, you're just losing traction like a Formula drift car the whole time, you're not gonna be able to get top speeds or 0 to 60s or 0 to 100s. So like those being failed is fine. I started out making the tire pressure 26 on the fronts and 28s on the rear. I don't really know, to be honest, why this works, but it works really well for me on like almost all of my cars. These descriptions on the side usually tell you some really, really interesting things and help a lot. I kind of look for the key points, and I don't really read the whole thing. Setting tire pressure lower causes tires to heat faster, reduce overall responsiveness. So I kind of want less responsiveness in the front because I want the front to lose traction, and then the rear, I kind of, since it's a rear-wheel drift car, a rear-wheel drive drift car, I kind of want all that power in the wheels and all that control and traction in the rear wheels, and I want to use that rear end to control things, and I kind of want the front just to swing out, but not too much, because then you're just going to spin in circles. So you kind of have to fiddle with it and play with it. Gearing, a general rule of thumb is I like these. If you look at the graph in the bottom right, obviously it's on 3.7. It's very short gears on this car, which honestly I could go with increasing it definitely, but I usually like to get cars to about this point. It feels like a really good gear spread. Some cars have really wonky gears and you have to do a lot of altering to them. I like the gearing on this car personally, so I don't really want to tweak it too much. This is really short gears the way I have it tuned right now, but I do like, I'd say I definitely would adjust it a little bit, make each one a little bit longer, spread out the entire ratio. That's what the final drive does. You can individually tweak how long each gear is by doing this. That's kind of how the way I think about it, and that's kind of the way it feels. You could see you tweak it towards speed and acceleration. That's not really how I think of it. When you tweak things towards speed, you make the gears longer, so it lasts longer. You sit in that gear longer, which is great. Not great, but better for like tandems and slower drifting and lower horsepower cars and stuff like that, right? Or even actually making it better for acceleration on lower horsepower cars might be better to get that instantaneous power when you're trying to, maneuver through those tight obstacles and stuff. So it's just, you kind of got to play with it based on what you're trying to do. There's lots of different types of drifting and stuff. Yeah, this is kind of how I like the gearing setup. I'm actually going to try this. I don't even know if it's going to be good. The way I just tweaked it. This is kind of my default for all drift cars that I do is -5 camber on the front, -2 on the rear, and then +5 degrees on the front toe and the rear, and then 7 on the front caster high. I kind of do this as a default on all my cars, and then I tweak them if I feel like my rear end's not swinging out far enough. You make this positive, and this makes it so you can actually read it. Positive camber reduces oversteer, but can make the car unstable. So oversteer and understeer, I'll explain real quick. Oversteer, from what I understand, I'm not an expert, but from what I understand, oversteer means you have to oversteer to get the car to turn. So basically, say you're turning left and you turn the wheel a little bit to the left, right? The car turns a certain amount. If you increase the oversteer, you now have to turn farther to the left to get it to go the same amount that it just did. And if you make it have more understeer, that means you have to turn it less and it'll still move that same amount or more, if that makes sense. Understeer means you have to steer less to do more, and oversteer means you have to oversteer or steer more to get it to do more, if that makes sense. So you would want more understeer, more towards the understeer side of things when you're drifting, because you want to be able to turn in and lose traction, if that makes sense. That's how I build my cars. I want to lose traction immediately, especially not having a handbrake. I want that turn in response. I want that understeer to make things easier on me when I'm going into those drifts. That being said, like I said, this is my default 5.2, 5.57. I do this on pretty much every car, and then I tweak it based on what I need. Front wheels aren't swinging out far enough. I increase the positive front camber. Rear tires don't feel like they're swinging out hard enough. I increase that rear. I really don't touch toe too much. I like to leave toe where it's at. It's a very finicky thing, messing with toe, and I like to leave it 5 and 5 maxed out. Anti-roll bars. So, like I said, this is where you like quickly read the descriptions. I look for the words increasing and decreasing on everything. Oversteer, understeer, increasing, decrease. That's what I look for in the descriptions. You can see decreasing rear anti-roll stiffness reduces oversteer. So, if I make the rear anti-roll stiffness softer, it will reduce oversteer, which means it will increase understeer. So if I make the rear anti-roll softer, I will have more understeer. To break that down, you just gotta like reword things to make them, make your brain process them better and understand them in a way that you can understand them. So that's what I think about it. As far as the front, increasing rear anti-roll stiffness increases oversteer. Excessive can cause the inside tires to lift off the ground, hard cornering, blah 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 blah. Find a balance. Like I try to keep this towards the middle. I mean, this is good. I don't really want to mess with it. I try to keep this towards the middle of soft and stiff for the front, and then the rear I just decrease the more I need understeer. That's it. Springs, I kind of try to keep these in the middle. This is weight transfer. So if you feel like the car is not transferring weight, good. If you have too much weight transfer, your car is gonna spin out. If you don't have enough weight transfer, the car is gonna have a hard time spinning. It's gonna have a lot of grip. And a lot of oversteer. So I'm pretty sure stiffening up the front, I'd have to read it. I'm pretty sure stiffening up the front makes it so you have more understeer. Stiffer front springs transfer more weight. Too much can cause the tires to lose traction under heavy load. So like that said, hold up, we gotta go back into that. Like that said, I'll break it down for you. So stiffer front spring. So if you have a stiffer front spring, the tires will lose traction under heavy load. So when you get sideways, the tires will lose traction. You have to be careful with this, because if you lose too much traction, like I said, you spin out. So you want to find a happy medium and a happy place to put this. Sounded like I think his name's Bob Ross or whatever. I sounded like the painter. But anyways, softening the front spring softening the front springs in relation to the rear increases front grip and reduces understeer. So you can see I actually do have softer front springs than rear. It's very rare that I do that, but for whatever reason, it gives this car really good stability. Like I said, that's something you kind of just got to play with, mess with these stats, put one in front of the other, one behind the other, make them even, tweak them like gradually, and see what feels better as you go. Stiffness, bump stiffness, I kind of don't touch unless one of these is really wacky, and then I try to just even them out. Increasing front bump stiffness increases transitional understeer. So this one's kind of tricky. I try not to mess with this too much, because usually the default statistic on the rebounds, fine. A lot of people say to do math for like a lot of these things and stuff. Screw the math. That's just not fun. Nobody wants to do math when they're playing video games. Screw that. I'm not gonna tell you to do that. Increasing front bump damping stiffness increases transitional understeer. transitional understeer is the understeer while you're transitioning. So like transitioning, the way I think about it is like transitioning like in an S turn, transitioning from left to right, the understeer. So if you're trying to do, tandems, or if you're trying to do, different types of obstacles and stuff like that, you need a lot of transitional understeer because you need to be able to swap sides into those different drifts really easy, like a Formula Drift car. So you would want to stiffen the front and drop the rear, and it's about that simple. Decreasing front damping stiffness increases transitional understeer. So let me read that. Decreasing front bump damping. So this is this. So increasing front bump damping stiffness increases. So if you increase this, it's going to do the same thing as increasing rebound. Transitional understeer, like I said, swapping from left to right a lot. Increase them a little bit, be gradual with it. These are statistics that change pretty fast, and you don't have a lot of room to work with, and so each increment is going to make a big difference. So be careful with that. I don't touch this ever. Braking, I put up to 140 to 150% just because your tires lock up if you have more braking pressure, so high braking force pressure. Your tires will lock up when you brake. I like that because you want your tires to lock up when you brake so you can drift. I wouldn't max this out. You can if you want. I usually like between the 140 150 range. And then the rear wheel drive drift car, want 100% on acceleration and deceleration. And that's pretty much it for like the tuning aspect of it and the upgrading aspect. Now I'll show you how it drifts. I mean, I'm not the best drifter in the world, so bear with me. But most of my viewers like it. A lot of my viewers ask me why I like to sit on the red line while drifting. I don't know. I just like the power delivery of being when you're redline on the gears. Obviously, you're gonna have to shift up and down depending on where you're at and stuff like that, and the specific corners. But third's a pretty good spot to sit in most of the time. And like I said, it drifts without needing a handbrake or anything like that, which is super convenient when you have a broken handbrake and can't hit those buttons on your wheel because it's a pain. Yeah, I really like to sit on redline for some reason. It's just like the way I learned how to drift on the wheel, and it's comfortable. But yeah, it's got great throttle control, great gearing ratio. It slides amazing. It's super controllable. It's a great beginner drift car. As you can see, it's like I'm not the best at drifting. I've only had the wheel for like a month or two, and it just slides perfectly. I mean, you can make pretty much any drift car like this too. I mean, I haven't made like a million drift cars, but you can. Most of mine are pretty good. A lot of people love downloading them. I could drift pretty much any car due to the fact that I've been practicing tuning and stuff like that. You can you start to understand things, and you're able to tweak every single car in a different way. And yeah, that's about it. I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on what I know. It's not like a super specific tutorial, and it's not like 100% accurate, but just what I've known and what I've learned. And I wanted to bridge off into a little bit of a different series than just the auction sniping stuff, and want to provide this information to those of you who are trying to learn how to build a tune for wheel drifting or for controller drifting. And maybe this can be a new series if it's successful. So if you guys like it, please do like the video, subscribe, comment. We're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. Only 86% of you guys are subscribed, so please subscribe. It really does help. And yeah, let me know if you guys like this series, and maybe I can start releasing specific drift tunes for specific cars and how I tune different cars and stuff like that. You guys leave some comments below on some cars you'd like to see next, and maybe we can make this a series. I appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you guys come by the stream sometime. All right.